welcome everyone to the Developer Game powered by MavenNext. MavenNext is your ServiceNow partner and workflow automation expert. Today, we're going to jump into the ServiceNow CSA exam with our panel of experts, 3 amazing experts that are all part of the MavenNext team, and they're going to share their unique journey on the ServiceNow platform, but especially with the CSA exam. As we continue through this webinar, I encourage all of our attendees to go ahead and drop any questions in the chat. You can either drop them directly in the chat or send them directly to me, Catherine Joffrey, your host. We'll be sure to answer as many questions as we can, but for whatever reason, if we don't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up in the email that will be following this webinar along with the recorded version of this webinar. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our amazing experts. Today we have Dan Menter. He is with MavenNext and he's a senior ServiceNow developer. We have Jordan Stein, another MavenNext employee, and he is a business process consultant. And then also Cesar Singh, who is a senior ServiceNow developer. Now I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Dan right now. If you could tell us a little bit more about your journey and experience on the ServiceNow platform.
Yep. Hi, so I'm Dan Menter. I started out, ServiceNow, actually kind of working help desk tickets, resetting people's passwords, doing that kind of thing. Worked in that space for a little while, moved over to doing incident management, opening up tickets, routing them, engaging teams and solving problems, that kind of stuff. From there, kind of jumped over into reporting, doing a lot of ServiceNow reports, performance analytics, kind of took that and was moved over into an automation role and kind of after that jumped into just straight up ServiceNow development. Now I've got up to 5 certifications. So I have the CSA, the CAD, CIS-Discovery, CIS-HAM, and certified application specialist performance analytics. So been knocking certifications out. The CSA was the very first one, and it was honestly one of the ones that just made me really nervous because I had never done it before. So just here to help. Oh, you're muted, Catherine.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Dan. We appreciate you sharing all that with us and can't wait to hear more from you. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Cesar Singh. Cesar, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience on the ServiceNow platform?
Sure. So I started my ServiceNow experience directly when I got my first job as a ServiceNow. Right before I got my CSA exam, this was when ServiceNow was on Jakarta version. So it was 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been a while. And during that time, I have been growing up my career, especially around ServiceNow and other tools, mostly focused on development. From there, I got different clients, different opportunities to grow up and get more knowledge of ServiceNow. And right now I'm acting as not only as a senior developer, but also I do work for architecture inside ServiceNow and automations and integrations too. So I really look forward for everyone who is interested to get the CSA exam and well, try to help them not get too nervous on their first try.
That's wonderful. And I think we will be helping with that and ensuring that they have that needed expertise that you will be providing to help them pass the CSA exam. All right, without further ado, Jordan, would you mind sharing a little bit more about your experience and journey on the ServiceNow platform?
Sure. Thank you, Catherine. My name is Jordan Stein, and I'm a business process consultant at MavenNext. I've been working on ServiceNow for just over a year. While taking the fundamentals course and learning the platform, I got my reps in by building my own custom Hockey League app on the ServiceNow platform in a personal developer instance. Since working in the platform, I've gained additional certifications in virtual agent, predictive intelligence, and have been working on ITSM, virtual agent, onboarding and offboarding, and customer service management.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jordan. We're excited to learn more. So now everyone has a little bit more information from our 3 experts. Thank you for sharing that. And without further ado, again, we'll just go ahead and jump into the questions. Just a reminder, go ahead and drop those into the chat and we will address them as they come through. And it looks like we already have some questions coming in. So I'm going to toss this one over to Dan. Dan, the first question is for you. And it is, what were you afraid of studying for the CSA? Ooh. Dan, you're on mute.
See it.
We're going to do that a few times. It's okay.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Welcome to Zubalamidars. Yeah, so I remember when I was first going to study, I was worried it was going to be like, here's this great big list of every role in the system and every table in the system and every property in the system. You have to know all this stuff, and we're going to test you on it by name. And honestly, I really didn't find that to be the case. I found it to be more, do you understand the system and how the parts function and how, like how the client and server work together? A lot more of that kind of logical stuff than it was like, know every single table that's granted by the ITIL role, all the system properties that run the back end that, and honestly, when you're working on that stuff in real life, you go and say, I'm going to look that up because nobody remembers those names specifically. And I feel like the exam kind of reflects that. It's more of a, do you understand the layout and how the pieces function together than it is, do you know these very specific, like properties or roles or anything? It's, do you understand how the subsystem works to, power the application? Do you understand, how to grant access and these kinds of things? So it's less about knowing like very specific details and more about knowing how it functions as a system.
Thanks, Dan. That's really helpful. And that inspired yet another question. I'll toss this one over to Jordan. Jordan, this is from, it looks like Daniel. If you could restart your learning journey for the CSA exam, what would you do different now?
That's a great question, Catherine. If I could restart my ServiceNow journey, the only thing that I really think that I would do differently than what I did for my prep would have been to just read up a little bit more on, the various aspects of ServiceNow and the different applications of the platform, and, be able to get some additional reps or take some more now learning courses to get additional training in some of those other platform capabilities.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think that actually leads into our next question for Cesar, is what resources are available to study for the CSA exam? So maybe more resources is what we're looking for. Would that have helped, Jordan? Is that somewhat what you were alluding to?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I definitely didn't know all of the resources that were available when I first started, and taking advantage of more of those off the bat certainly would have been helpful.
Awesome. All right. So kicking it over to Cesar, what are some of those resources that we could maybe share with those listening and looking ready to take the CSA exam?
Right. So resources, that it's quite something hard to get sometimes, specifically for the first time you're actually doing your CSA exam. Of course, the first one, it will be the fundamentals course. This is the first thing you're going to see, you're going to check out, and you're going to get most of the information you actually need to pass your CSA exam. Probably what you might want to have as a resource also is the developer ServiceNow.com. That is basically the developer website for ServiceNow. Is not only for developers, you actually have also some auto learning courses that are more focused on admin, and a little bit more of other resources that you don't actually have on the fundamentals course. And the Now community also is a good way to find more information on the regarding the ServiceNow CSA exam, and also perhaps you might find doubts from somebody else that perhaps you didn't know about during your study process. And one recommendation that I found that is more regarding the developer side is the YouTube channel for the ServiceNow developer program. That is not an official way to get information regarding CSA exam, but I'm either way I'm saying this resource because you actually have a lot of good good interviews, good trainings for getting you to know not only CSA, so not only as an admin but also as a developer. So those will be my main resources that I will tell you about the CSA, and also perhaps a little bit more.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you, Cesar. And just for those listening, I did go ahead and drop some of those in there from those resources. So feel free to grab those there. Again, this will be recorded. So when we follow up with the recorded version, you will have all those links as well. All right, so I'm going to turn this one is from an anonymous attendee. I'll give this over to Dan. And how have you managed the dreaded imposter syndrome, if you've had that? I guess I should start, have you ever had the imposter syndrome?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't have a degree in computer science. I have a degree in geography and a degree in law. So it's not like I am the most experienced person as far as computer science. I've definitely had the imposter syndrome where it's like, dude, you have a geography degree. What are you doing here writing computer code? So yeah, I mean, it's one thing to just kind of, the CSA itself actually kind of helped with that. It was the first, certification that I ever went and took. So once I got that, it was like, it helps being able to like, I have a PDF that shows I know some of this stuff pretty well. And honestly, I found that it's just a repeated building stuff. Like one of the very best things you can do for that is to just go to developer.servicenow.com, get a PDI, get in there, and there's two things you can do. You can build something new. So take one of your hobbies, one of your favorite shows, build out your own IMDb app, your own fan page, your own episode tracker where you're tracking Easter eggs or something. Build out something that you just have a passion about, where you can find excuses to be like, oh well, there's going to be a client script and it's going to give me an excuse to do the 4 different versions of client scripts, and there's going to be a business rule that runs in the background that changes this field, and that's going to be a way to just get in there and practice those different server side scripts, client side scripts, and just get familiar with that stuff, and that really helps with the imposter syndrome, because you're just like, it's hard to argue when you're like, that's exactly what I would do here. Like you'll eventually get to the point where you'll be in meetings, you're like, all right, that's going to be a client script, it's going to be a UI action policy, that's going to be you just start thinking in records, and that comfort comes with getting in there and just building. And so the other thing too, if you're going to get a PDI, you can go in there and just take something apart. It's really easy to look at the different records, the different scripts, and kind of figure out how everything fits together and works. Some of the things that I've taken apart are the just group records. Go in there, look at how you add a group to any kind of other table. Look at how you add a group member, how you add a role, how you add a skill, how all those things work together to kind of make groups as useful as they are in ServiceNow. And that's kind of more of a simple table. You can also do stuff like take apart the service catalog, look at how the variables and relationships and those work. They're super complicated as far as systems in ServiceNow. If you can look at this more complicated stuff and understand how it works, it really helps get rid of that imposter syndrome. It really helps you build that confidence. Be like, okay, I do know how this stuff works. I can build a report on it. I can show you. When the state changes, what happens to these records. So it's just a matter of getting in there, build that comfort by building stuff and then taking stuff apart.
Thanks, Dan. That's awesome. So from law degree to senior ServiceNow developer, it is possible. And you're a living proof. So that's fantastic. Here we have another question. And this question is, aside from the exam blueprint provided, are there other mock exams we can use to get us prepared for the actual exam? And I can reread that again. Did everyone get that? Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to toss this over to the panelist. And is there somebody that wants to tackle this question?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. Go ahead, Jordan.
I'm going to take it, Jordan. I feel like if there was
no, go ahead, Cesar.
First. Okay.
I mean, I could just start because I think since I took the exam like long ago, perhaps you could actually add more information for this. But I mean, so there are two visions over that question, so that and an actual answer. The official one and the not so official one. So I'm gonna go with the official one. The official one is that you should never have something that is not from official sources from ServiceNow. So you like I said before on the last question, you actually have multiple sources in which you can actually get enough information, a lot of information actually from what you need to know, what is regarding the CSA exam, or even some question on the community, right? So community is an official resource to get your question answers. Is there a mock exam? Yeah, you might find some things on internet that regarding some mock exam. Like I said before, that is not something official, is not recommended, and especially because for multiple reasons, but especially mostly because you won't have 100% sure that the answer is given you is correct, because questions on the CSA exam changed. Is not just simple questions that you get written by one people and that's it. It's a group of people who does this exam. So you're not going to have a mock exam that is going to give you 100% sure or assurance that you're going to pass exam just by getting a good percentage of that mock exam. So my recommendation would be just try to stay away as much as possible from those mock exam. If you want to go ahead and use a resource that is not official, I mean, that is your choice. The best you can do is, if you want to do something similar as a mock exam, go to the community, go to community ServiceNow, try to find questions over there that perhaps you have doubts about. Try to participate on the community. The best thing you can do on ServiceNow is be active on the ServiceNow community, which is great. I think it's one of the best communities I found, like in many other tools, and you might get your questions answered. So yeah, that will be my answer to that question.
So I'll go ahead and add to that, Cesar. Mm-hmm. For me, just like you said, there are unofficial resources out there that are going to be mock exams or quizzes or flashcards. And that is all well and good, but ultimately the questions that are a simple, definition, question and answer, a much better place to practice that is with the knowledge checks in the fundamentals course. And ultimately, if you take that fundamentals course and you do those knowledge checks, that's going to put you in a pretty good position. But the questions that you might have a harder time with, you really need some practical experience in the platform. That's where I'd really direct you to kind of go in the direction that, Dan was talking about. Get a personal developer instance, find something that you're passionate about, that you're going to continue to be energized and engaged and excited to go back to. That could be an IMDb sort of thing. You could catalog your record collection. You could make a database of recipes, build a service catalog, create some workflows. Really getting some practical experience in the platform so that you can answer questions that aren't just definition, black and white. In addition to that, I'd really recommend, if you're, spending extra time outside of that fundamentals course with your prep, if you don't have a strong background in ITSM, you really want to get some familiarity with incident, problem, and change management. A great resource for that is the ITIL 4 Pocket Guide. And if that's too dry for you, there are tons of resources that you can find just by searching.
Awesome. That's some great advice, guys. Thanks so much. We're going to turn this one over to Dan. So PDI, Dan, what is PDI in ServiceNow, and what sort of role does it play in terms of the CSA exam?
Oh man, so PDI stands for Personal Developer Instance. So if you go to developer.servicenow.com, you can sign up for it. It allows you to pick like a specific version of ServiceNow. So, they're named after cities. The current version right now is San Diego. So, if you want to go in and practice, a PDI is that like completely sandbox environment. You can't go in there and damage anything. And if you do, there's a banner and you can just reset it and they'll give you a brand new one. So it's the perfect place to go in and say, I think this might break something. We'll find out. So and it's also one of those places where, like, if you want like some of the store applications that you can't get from ServiceNow without paying for them, or you just want to try like a plugin or something that like normally is a pretty big change for an actual like customer instance or your own environment. You can go in there and be like, okay, I'm going to activate this plugin and see what it actually installs, what tables are activated, what fields change, that kind of stuff. It's really just that kind of like experimental lab, go in and blow it up and then reset it and then go in and blow it up and do it differently, just to learn and it's it really is just kind of that free-for-all experimental place.
Awesome. Very helpful. Thank you. Next question we've got over here is, how do candidates get their needed 3 to 6 months of experience on the ServiceNow platform? What if they're not employed at that moment? Do they need to be employed? I'm going to toss this one over to Jordan.
Sure. Thanks for that question, Catherine. So what can you do to get those reps in ServiceNow if you're not already employed? Again, hate to sound like a broken record, but really that personal developer instance is your best friend. You really are, in order to pass that exam, going to need to have some reps actually working in the system. And, if you don't have a job working in ServiceNow and you're not, spending 8 hours a day actually doing that, you're going to really struggle on some parts of the exam. As we said before, getting a personal developer instance and really just getting in there and starting to do the things that you're learning about in your fundamentals course is going to be so helpful. Writing UI policies, writing business rules, writing some client scripts, creating some UI actions. Those are all things that if you haven't actually done them, you're going to have a hard time getting past the definitional sorts of questions on the exam. So that would be my recommendation. If you're at a loss for what to do there, I'd get on the ServiceNow community, try and find some other people that are in the same boat and challenge each other with, some stories or some actual things to build.
Makes sense. All right, our next question is, once you receive the CSA certification, what is next? Cesar, do you want to attack this one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So what's next after the CSA exam? So probably what you will find out is that basically ServiceNow open up multiple words. So you might get confused on what to get, where to go. Like, should I focus on something like it's more new on ServiceNow, something that many people is asking on possible job, because you're getting your CSA certification to start working on ServiceNow, but you don't want to get stuck there. So something that I say to everyone who doesn't know exactly where to go after the CSA exam is focus on a specific part on ServiceNow, something that you like, not only for ServiceNow, but outside ServiceNow. So let's say you are a programmer, you are a developer, you like to do, hardcore JavaScript work. And you might think, okay, so where should I go? Well, go through the CAD exam. Try to get your next step will be focus on the CAD exam, the CAD certification. Focus on your development skills inside ServiceNow. Try to learn more about the different ways to actually do scripting in ServiceNow. There is not one way today. There's not one single way to actually do the same thing on ServiceNow. There are multiple ways. Try to get your knowledge on best practices. Perhaps you are not technical. Perhaps you are more like Jordan, a BPC. You might get your implementation certifications. Perhaps you might get more knowledge around HR modules, PPM modules, more on Agile modules inside ServiceNow. So that wouldn't get you anything too much around development. It will be more of focus on actual, more work with people, work with with things that are actually being used for directly for users and not so much for the maintenance or enhancement of ServiceNow. Even so, there's something that I'm not quite expert on that, which is Service Portal. There's a lot of things for those who are UI UX experts on service portals, and that it needs to be exploited a lot. So once again, my recommendation would be focus on something you like. So try to get after CSA, try to get this next certification that it best fits what you like to do, not just what is best for a company, for a specific company, or just to get a specific job, but something that you like. Otherwise, you will get, that it was my mistake at the beginning, you will get crazy because you're going to start learning too many things at the same time, and ServiceNow is not a small tool. It's a really big tool. It's growing, and it's growing fast. So you will never be an expert on the short term. You will require really long terms to actually get to know ServiceNow right to the core, right? So, and even so, if you get to that point in which you actually are called an expert, core expert ServiceNow, that might be just temporary because ServiceNow is evolving. So focus on something you like. From there on, you will get your career progressing. You will get perhaps other tools. You get something I don't know, you were getting your CAD, and then you got to see that you're actually not so much on the developer right now, and you want to go through a BPC like Jordan, so you can get also on another track. You don't actually need to be just on one track your whole career. You can actually start splitting in different ways. But for now, focus on something. Start with something little, start with something specific, and then you go one by one, step by step. That will be my answer for that.
That was wonderful. I'm inspired by that. That's a really good answer. All right. Well, we have time for barely one more question. So I'm going to push it out to all three of you. The final question before we do wrap this up, because I want to be cognitive of everyone's time, is basically, and this is an interesting question, but what can someone do if they fail the first time that they take the CSA? And again, that's to all of you if you want to jump in and just kind of address that question.
Sure, I'll start, Catherine. So if you do fail the CSA, you have additional opportunities to take it. To me, prep for retaking the exam starts when you take the first exam. Obviously, nobody wants to fail, but you need to be prepared. So what I would recommend that you do, you have the ability when you're taking the exam to mark questions for review so that you can look at those again at the end. And ServiceNow gives you a lot of time to take the exam. Chances are you're going to have time left at the end. I highly recommend go mark questions that you aren't 100% sure of the answer for review. Go back through them, give the best answer that you can, but really try and take some mental notes of which of the 5 learning domains those questions are coming from. And as soon as you finish that exam, if you do happen to fail, just start writing down as much as possible that you can remember from not the specific questions, but more the general areas of the platform where you were struggling, and then get back into that fundamentals course, do the knowledge checks for those sections. If you're struggling, go back and redo the section, redo the lab, watch the videos again, read the documentation, go to the ServiceNow product documentation and start digging into those areas, and then take those areas into your PDI and start actually doing whatever those things were that were giving you a hard time. When you start doing them, you're going to start understanding them, and that's going to give you a much better basis to succeed versus just trying to memorize the answer to a specific question that you may not see again.
Great stuff. Dan, Cesar, does anyone want to jump in on that?
Yeah, go ahead, cry it out a little bit, make yourself feel better, and then do everything that Jordan just said. Look at what you feel like you're weak in, check those knowledge checks, those questions. You don't even necessarily have to look at the answers to those questions. Once you get them wrong or once you answer, basically it pops up basically a little block at the end and explains the reasoning behind the question. And really, that's kind of what you need to focus on, like the little gray block that pops up and explains, like, this is why the answer is this. And once you start really understanding those, like, that's really going to help you out a lot too.
Yeah, in my case, I would just simply add, breathe. It's okay. It's okay to have your first try failing. It's normal. I mean, it's not a really complex exam, I will call it. It's just tricky. Questions are really tricky, so you need to be careful with what you're actually reading and the option they're giving you. So it's okay to actually fail. Like Jordan said before, you have 2 more tries to do so. The best you can do is breathe. Take a look at the end of exam. You're actually going to receive an email that is going to say the percentage that you got on the exam in different sections. It's not going to be like on detail, but it's going to say something like, I don't know, data and CMDB, X percentage you actually got. So perhaps that will give you just a heads up on what you might need to focus more other than other things. So that will get you more prepared on your next try. And yeah, I mean, just go ahead and take your next exam. It's okay. You might be able to, even if you get your second chance and you fail, you still have another try. Just try to breathe. Don't be nervous. Just make the best of those tries you get, and you're going to be sure that you're going to be passing that exam.
Thank you. Well, guys, it's been such a pleasure to be part of this webinar with the 3 of you experts. I know I've learned a lot. I hope everyone listening has taken something positive from this webinar. As we mentioned earlier, thank you for joining the developer game powered by MavenNext, your ServiceNow partner and workflow automation expert. This has been recorded, so we will send this recording out to all those that have participated, and you'll receive that in email here shortly. And any additional content that we can provide will be provided in that email too. Also, I do want to invite everyone. I think we all want to invite everyone. We'll have the same experts back on August 26th. So we hope to see you then. Again, it will be at 4 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to take a deeper dive into the CSA exam in the ServiceNow platform. And we'll have some actual questions that we think will really help you guys as you go to take this exam. So again, we'll have that all followed up in an email here shortly. And thanks so much for joining us. And thanks again, guys. It was such a pleasure to have the 3 of you on here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Catherine. Go sign up, everybody.